Okay, I hit record. I went downstairs and made sure my husband knew I was going to be broadcasting for the next half hour or so. And he is working at home today. He's working on a car hot rod project, his next hot rod. So he's sanding or grinding, and he hasn't quite stopped yet. So clearly his idea of when 10 o'clock is and my idea, or our clocks are not synchronized. We'll just ignore him. I'm sure he'll stop in a minute. We're talking about meditative painting. So, of course, actually, we should have a backdrop of a little bit of noise and chaos as we talk about this idea and of using painting as a tool for mindfulness. And I want to tell you a little bit about my reason for choosing this theme for our live studio session today. And then we actually want to go and do it. So, and I don't want to take up all your time. I thought if I'm going to be trying to do these live video sessions every week, which is my goal, I don't want us to feel obligated that they're always in an hour or 2 hours or half an hour is a nice chunk of time as well. Just to help kind of keep us in the mindset of encouraging creativity and. Yeah, I have a lot to say on the subject. I want to thank you for joining me today. Robin is not here to moderate. You are fearless community members, and really moderating is most important when we're doing a live public YouTube broadcast, because then sometimes you get some strange people with strange comments that need to be kind of filtered out. But because we're all community here, we don't have that concern. If you do have questions, I will try to make room at the end of the broadcast for those. So we don't have someone here to collect your questions. That's the main difference with Robin not being here today. She's working on some other stuff for me. And so yeah, we'll take that at the end of the broadcast. Okay, why are we talking about meditative painting? What I really should be talking about is getting better at painting, because I guess this was kind of a hard weekend for me. On Friday night, there was an art opening in a nearby community, and I had a painting entered in that group show, and that particular show is open to a bunch of different media. It's a juried show, so you submit your artwork, and it's a regional show, so it's members of kind of the neighboring, I don't know, 3 or 4 communities here. And it's been growing. It's really nice to have this supportive community of artists and to see the diversity of all the things that we create. And it's been exciting to see that group grow since its inception 7 or 8 years ago. And I've been a member since that chapter group started. So it's been fun to be a part of. And usually when I submit a painting or several paintings to that show, I have them all accepted to hang in the show. Usually they're quite eager to take anything that's submitted, because we are a small community. We don't have a lot of members, but as the group has grown, of course, the need has increased for us to make room for all the art that's submitted, or to have to set some aside so that we can have space for the very best of what's submitted. And I feel like I'm rambling here. Anyhow, the long and the short of it is I submitted 4 paintings to this show. Only one of those 4 was chosen. And that was hard. It's never fun to get a rejection. To receive that email, the one thing about it was I received the email. It said, yes, this painting has been accepted. These 3 have not. The painting that was accepted definitely felt like it was the best of the 4 for the subject matter and how well it fit the show. I really think it's one of my best paintings from this year. But the other 3 I was very proud of as well. I wouldn't have submitted them otherwise. And so it was hard to hear that they weren't included. And then the art opening happened on Friday, and they give awards. They have first, second, and third prize. They have honorable mentions. They have special recognition awards that they do. And I had nothing chosen. That my one painting didn't get recognized at all. And that was also hard, especially when I looked at the paintings that had been chosen, and they were artists who are friends of mine who are doing amazing work. And yet, I felt like my painting could have stood just as well alongside those pieces. And so I kind of had to process that. And as much as you tell yourself that, if getting rejected or not getting chosen or not getting acknowledged for what you're doing is so subjective. And jurors will tell you. In fact, I would encourage you to read some of the articles online written by people who have juried these watercolor shows, because it's really that reminder that why a painting's not chosen doesn't mean it's not a good painting. There's so many reasons that go into it, and there's often just so many paintings that it's competing with to get those select spots, and yeah, there's all kinds of psychology behind it even as well, and jurors have different preferences, but it still stings no matter how much you tell yourself that it's not a common it's not a condemnation of the work. It still hurts, and especially if it's not the first time. If you've for me, I've been entering my work in shows and competitions for 20 plus years. And the times I've won awards are just a handful, maybe 3. I'm not including the People's Choice ones where I had the most family at the show, and so my art got the most votes because I was just the most loved person there. Those are always special for another reason. But it is just a hard thing to be passed over for whatever reason, and because our work is very personal. And so I'm looking at, I'm just processing this, and I'm feeling kind of down all weekend, and recognizing that will pass. At the same time, I'm very proud of what I do, and I stand by my work because I really work to create and to show work that is an authentic reflection of who I am and where I'm at. So I only show work and submit work that I identify strongly with. And so that makes rejection feel personal. It also makes my work very valid, because even if it's not chosen, because it's still me, and I can't be less me. I want to be more me. Anyhow, so coming into the studio today, then thinking about wanting to grow my work, and one of the things that was hard about this particular seeing my friends who won awards is that most of them are full-time artists, and I'm a full-time teacher, which is not the same thing. The time I spend in my own artistic development is less than they are spending, and so then there's that part of me that thinks, maybe I should be doing less teaching and more painting for myself. And definitely I do want to make time to continue to develop as an artist. And you've been seeing that as I've been doing those Montreal scenes. And so I'm processing all of this stuff in my head. And there's this feeling, this motivation that says, hey, you got to go to the studio now, and you got to do more. You got to get better, and you have to make your work stronger, and you have to spend more time in personal development. And my reaction to that, rather than coming into the studio, carrying that load with me, is I want to come into the studio and let that go. Actually, what I need right now, in this feeling of not being maybe good enough for somebody else's opinion or to win a prize or whatever, that feeling of not being enough, rather than trying to be more, I want to come into the studio and learn how to let go of all of that, so I can be, again, more me. If I'm going to be anything, I need to be more me. And how do I do that when I come into the studio feeling all of these pressures, or that need to just grow and change? I don't want to carry that burden. So here we are. That was a long explanation, but I just wanted you to understand that I come here and I don't instantly feel creative, and sometimes it's that feeling of pressure, wanting to be better. Sometimes it's having a painting that I really want to do and don't know if I can. Sometimes it's just feeling like I need to focus on doing some learning. All of those things are important, but I want to start in the right place, and that's remembering why I paint. Why do I do watercolor? So we're gonna just focus on why. So we're going to just focus on our why today, and our why is we started painting in watercolor because it was beautiful, because we loved it, because there was something about those beautiful translucent colors on white paper that called us in. And a lot of times it was the process. The process seemed meditative, so we're going to work with that. And yeah, we're gonna, there's some conversation in the chat about rejection and how hard it is. And a lot of times I like to just live in kind of denial that it happens, and I just kind of put it in a box and just move on. And but I don't think there's anything wrong in just saying, it's hard, it hurts. And it felt a little weird this weekend to be acknowledging that out loud, because I do tend to just be like, no, it's okay. It's fine. I understand it. I know the reasons why things get rejected. I know it's not about my work, and I can say all those things, but I can still feel crappy inside. And so for me, that was a part of my process this weekend, was just acknowledging that that's the case. It feels bad. It's nobody's fault. I'm not angry with anybody. I'm not jealous. Well, maybe I'm a little jealous of my friends who are being recognized. I'm really proud of them too. They've worked hard, and so we come back to the studio, and I'm here because I want, if anything, if there's rejection out in that world, when I put my art out there, in here, this needs to be a safe place. And I mean, that's why we made the Fearless Artist community, is we wanted to bring that idea of having a safe place, but we need to do it in the studio. And so we're going to do that today. We're going to make our studio practice an opportunity to have, to create a safe place for us to create. We want to focus on that idea of, we want to focus on that idea of just painting for the love. I come back to that over and over again. I want that to show in my work. And so, and I want to let go of those pressures that say, Angela has to be more, you have to do more. Roberta says, I wonder if it's because you have a bit of a competitive spirit. Oh yeah, I'm competitive. I'm so competitive. And so I'm always pushing myself to do better. And at the same time, this message that, just do what you do for the love, and have a safe place to just love what you love and do what you do. And that's, so that's what we're going to do this morning. And now before I turned the camera on, I came in and I did a little bit of painting just quietly on my own, and I actually had some music playing. And if YouTube wouldn't instantly shut me down for playing music I don't own the copyright to, I would turn some music on again. So what I would encourage you to do is, I'm just going to do my kind of mindfulness creative exercise. I'm going to narrate and talk about some of my thoughts, and just try to think about mindset here. I'm doing this for myself. I need this. And so I'm sharing it with you. But ordinarily I would have probably some music playing, and something that would hopefully help me to, just calm down, let go a little bit, feel relaxed. I was actually listening to a podcast before I turned the camera on today, and there was a beautiful hymn being played with violin and some kind of flute, and it was beautiful. And I'm not really a classical music person or instrumental kind of person. I like peppier music, and my spray bottle's not really wanting to work, so we're gonna use water, and just get a splash of water across the paper. Prep the surface with a little bit of water at the top. But as I was saying, choose some music that helps you feel calm and relaxed as well, and have that going on in the background. Let's just make this a really peaceful time. And we're here to love watercolor, and so we want to be very gentle and very relaxed. We want to tap into that place of relaxation. And so often we feel this strong intensity and urgency about our work for some reason, rather than just being still and present. So I've just done the top part of the paper with water, and there's actually pools and beads of water. I think you can see that there at the bottom. So there's lots of fluidity happening here. And I'm going to choose some colors that I know create texture on the paper, some colors that are very sedimentary. And those Primatech colors are a really good example from Daniel Smith. This is hematite, and this is regular hematite, and it goes down kind of a cool gray. And just setting it on there, you can see that granular texture. And that gives me something very natural to look at. And that's kind of where I want to go right now, is just paying attention to those beautiful qualities of watercolor and working with some transparency. Something that I can kind of look at and see it do its thing in a very organic way. I had just recently bought Bloodstone Genuine. It's actually here in the middle of my palette. I haven't put it in a well yet. So we're going to put a little Bloodstone Genuine on as well. And I'm working with pigment right now. And pigment is, watercolor paint and acrylic and oil paint are all the same in that they're all made of pigment. It's the suspension, it's the binder that holds them together that makes them different from each other, makes them watercolor or acrylic or oil paints. So the pigments are all the same. And so when we're working with watercolor, we do use a lot of water. We dilute it, we let it flow, but it's the pigment that creates the color and has those different qualities, like these granulating colors like the bloodstone. Bloodstone is definitely much warmer than the hematite. It looks almost reddish in a way. And I just love those beautiful textures. I've done a little bit of spatter, and I'm really just trying to pause so I can let some of those colors sweep across the paper. I'm going to tilt quite a bit here, and let's just add a little more water so that we can create some flowing, some drips that flow. And pause and then watch them instead of choosing that next move, because I think we're always thinking of the next move. We want to be more present and just looking at the paint as it flows. If you're working with without a lot of water, it's not going to flow much. So there's going to be less to watch. Another color that I love for its granulating texture is Cobalt Violet Deep. So we're going to put some of that on here. And over here. And I'm trying to use a very, very gentle touch. I'm using a big fat quill brush. I think this one's made by Princeton. So it holds a lot of water and it creates those broader strokes. And then I just want to keep encouraging flow. So just touching the paper even with a wet brush lets that color move. And at this point I've been choosing predominantly cool colors. I don't know, it has a kind of a peaceful feel. And we're just going to pause for a moment and look at the paint. And I'm really taking my time here. And I'm also going to mute the microphone for a second so I can blow my nose. So whenever we let color flow like this, it has to go somewhere. So usually it moves to the bottom of the page. Sometimes it puddles there. Sometimes it really dilutes so that you have nothing left at the bottom of the page. But in that place of flow, some really beautiful things can happen. I'm going to touch in some lavender. Lavender is not as sedimentary. It's a color that I love. Color that goes with a lot of things. And I'm really trying not to think about what I'm looking at so much. I'm not trying to direct the paint or make it into anything. The goal here is just letting that organic movement start to happen. This side of the paper is starting to dry a bit, so I'm just going to add a little more water. this kind of meditative painting is never a waste of paper. Um, First of all, it does help me to focus on the watercolor, so I'm painting for watercolor's sake. But it also, these thin washes could provide the foundation for a future painting. I don't know. At some point, I might be ready to see possibilities in these washes and explore those. I do feel like there's a little bit of limitations when you're working with gravity because everything does want to move down. So we have all these downward moving shapes. And so I do tend to vary the angle of my paper. Not that I would turn and go a completely different direction so that I have crisscrossing drips. I don't, those kind of, it just doesn't appeal to me, I guess. I don't know why. So rather I would choose to increase or decrease the amount of downward flow. Sometimes I'm going to hold my paper really vertical so it flows quickly. Other times maybe I want the colors to stay flatter, not move around as much, or at least not move downward. So I'll adjust. And that's one reason that we've always painted on this support, on a board, on some kind of surface. One thing about this right now is really working to suspend judgment. It's not about creating something beautiful. Using some Aussie red gold here, introducing something very different. Because my paper, I'm using the back side of an old painting, there was a little bit of kind of orangey color here. I don't know what color that original orangey color is, so I thought I'd try the Aussie red gold. But we aren't trying to make something at this point. We're just here to watch the paint and really and not even watch the paint, just really engage with what's happening on the paper. To take a pause in our day before we go to work, really. We've been working with a lot of diluted color. If you choose to add a stronger, purer bead of color, we're going to get a different effect again. So much of this is gentleness. I'm not scrubbing the paint onto the paper. I'm just touching very gently and then, removing my brush so that the paint can do its work. It's where we really have gravity kind of getting involved. And I think what's starting to happen is, I gain something in terms of being able to trust the watercolor to do beautiful things. I'm doing very little more than just encouraging flow, placing those colors and then letting them move across the paper. And so if that's my one role, everything else comes from the watercolor. And it becomes a place where again, suspending judgment means I can choose my favorite colors. I don't have to have any reason, rhyme or reason for why I do what I do. I can just do and watch. And this becomes about painting because we like to paint, because it calms us down. I wonder a little bit, I was thinking about this morning, about all the artists that struggled with mental health issues. Artists are often very sensitive and very attuned to emotions. And I don't know, for me, it's not necessarily about painting my feelings, but using painting as a way to um, connect to good feelings, really, I guess. I don't really want to dissect all the emotions I felt when I was, struggling with my interpersonal dynamics with so and so, with that person in my life that is hard to deal with. I don't, or my desire to be understood by the world or whatever. I don't feel the need to paint all that deep stuff. Rather, in painting, I have a place where I can kind of escape from some of that and connect to emotions that really just feel good. And where the fun starts to disappear is when we do bring those, our performance driven personalities into the studio, because that's kind of what we've been trained to do in life, is always be analyzing, if we're doing our job, if we're being responsible and contributing. So I really want to come in here and just do watercolor for me. And all of this is getting kind of murky. And over here, it's much prettier. Kind of like that. That gives me a better feeling than some of this stuff. So you know what I'm going to do is I'm going to just add some more water and wash a little bit of this side of the paper. And that should lighten up some of those dark. This is why I keep a nice big pad under my board. It's just a dish drying mat you can buy at Walmart or wherever. Look at that movement. Oh, it's so beautiful. And a wad of paper towel works too if you want to, or just a regular old towel if you have one that you've been meaning to retire. I can never throw a towel away once it starts to get threadbare, so we save them, bring them into the studio. So I'm encouraging that flow to get some of that dark, murky sediment just a little bit lighter. It's making these beautiful, beautiful tracks down the paper. And then I think I will go back into the lavender. I like that, so we'll use that new infusion of water to get some more beautiful blue flow again. We underestimate the stuff that we do that our instincts tell us to do, I think, a lot of the time. You don't have to know why to make a choice in your painting. Sometimes we just make that choice and we figure out the why later. Something that's really helped me in teaching watercolor has been that I have had to learn how to articulate why I do some of the things I do. But it starts with just doing them and then figuring out later, I added that pop of orange because I needed a complementary color and I didn't know why. Sometimes we might never figure it out. That's okay too. When you create flow, that one thing that's happening here is I've really had to give up control. Let watercolor do its thing. The more flow you create, the less you really can control what's happening. And somehow that creates these really beautiful opportunities. I'm running so low on lavender in my palette. I use it pretty much every day for every painting. So we're doing good work. Even if this doesn't turn out to be anything, even if it gets put in a drawer and I never look at it again, There's good work that happens when we just step away from the world for a while. We've been discussing in the community what's our why for painting something, and Robin's reply, we talked about it actually, we talk every week, and so we talked about it in a call, and just this idea of taking this sacred pause. Just time stops as you take in a moment of beauty. And there's this really interesting gray that's happening over here. And I've been thinking about that ever since she mentioned it, which means it was a really good, really good insight. How much of that just mindfulness is in seeing something that's beautiful, and then for artists, we get to pause to try to create it, or to express a response to the beautiful things that we see. I'm just kind of using the brush in just a small area right here to lift and loosen some paint in one spot, just for fun, just to see what it'll do. Rather than doing it across the whole top of the page, just a little bit along the bottom here. I think we tend to not see our pauses as so sacred. They're often, we consider pausing to be kind of a waste of time. We're so productivity oriented. And I have a massive to-do list, and it's the beginning of a week, so it's really easy to feel that pressure to accomplish a lot. But don't you think we accomplish more when we have found that little moment of peace? When we just feel a little bit more like ourselves because we took time to connect with what pleases us, the things we think are beautiful. And this is very meditative, just touching in these bits of, this is really pure pigment right here, the Aussie Red Gold. It's actually, you can see the chunks on my brush, I think. There's so much texture in this, which I'm sure you probably can't see with the limitations of the webcam, but this paper is, so saturated with water at this point that it's going to take its time drying. So I can touch in these little pops of pure color. Again, super light touch. And this side of the paper is starting to kind of dry a bit. So I really could start thinking about line if I wanted to, but I'm not here for that. I think this is different than one of those first layers where you're building a foundation for a future painting. That's a goal. The goal in this is just that it tapping into that emotion. And painting for the love. And sometimes it's going to feel forced, because I'm not always great at getting focused. This, and you're seeing, something that I would ordinarily do all by myself in the studio, quietly, no distractions, no concern about making sure that I'm understood by the people watching the video. So there's a limitation to how much I can share as well. But I tend to move into these sessions, with just this feeling of trust that, even if it doesn't go exactly as planned, and it never goes as planned, there's still value there. It's still beneficial to me. I want to spray it somehow, maybe with just a little bit of water. Try this water bottle again. There we go. And that again is that opportunity to watch the paint do its thing. I have salt too I could sprinkle on if I want to. Um, that's going to give me a different outcome. It's not so much about right now, but about what I might see later. But I'm kind of pulling away from touching this again. At this point, it's really time to kind of let it sit. And yet I want to add more water again. There's just a part of me that keeps wanting to go lighter. And allow that organic flow to happen, giving up control. And there's tiny little black hematite particles. It's interesting because this summer when we were camping, my friend Sarah brought along a gold pan. And so we were doing a little bit of attempting to pan for gold along this river and didn't find any gold. But, at the very bottom of the gold pan, she said, there's these little black flecks. And if you put a magnet in there, the flecks will cling to it. And that is the hematite. And of course, I immediately thought of paint. And sure enough, this looks just, a little more colorful than what was at the bottom of our gold pan. Would have been nice to find some of that color down there. But yeah, it's very much just like what we found in those tiny little particles that were clinging to the magnet. So yeah, we get to paint with that. That's really interesting. And it just connects us again to the earth, to nature. And that's pretty special. Okay. I knew there'd be hopefully less talking in this broadcast, but I wanted to. I just wanted to welcome you in here to see that I don't always paint for a goal. I don't always paint with the objective of even getting better at painting, and especially when I'm feeling a little bit beat up by the world. Why would we not want our studios to be a safe place to come? Now the risk is that we bar the door and never leave again. So I'm careful about how much food I keep in the studio because, any excuse. But I just need that reminder that the things that I love are valuable. Who I am is really valuable and important too. And when we're dealing with a little rejection or that feeling of not being good enough, or even that drive to just do something really significant, continually coming back. And what is the root of all of this? And this has been my painting practice from very early on, not from the very beginning because I didn't know enough, but from very early on, I realized that if I can get to the foundational stuff, just like a portrait or a figure drawing person, if you're drawing from life, you get to the heart of the figure. You look for the spine, and you get that bar of the shoulders, and then you build all these. Often they're using circles and ovals. To create this human form, which then all of that gets connected and you have this accurate figure drawing. And it's the same way for us. If we can get to the foundational stuff, if we can simplify it down to those basics and get the basics right, then we have this beautiful framework to build on. For me, the foundation has to be my love of watercolor. And then from there, it's, really getting, simplifying the scene and understanding all of that stuff. And we've talked about that, and we talk about that, and we'll keep talking about that. But coming back again and again to showing and sharing my love and recognizing the value in my own unique perspective, and learning how to see the beauty in what I'm doing, even when it's just kind of happening organically on its own. All of that's really important. And I'm of divided minds about how much Well, no, I don't know about that. Mindset matters, and it doesn't have to mean, getting away to meditate for all of the, for all kinds of time. Sometimes it's just learning how to take those little pauses through your day. Sometimes it's just taking a few minutes in the studio to really start to feel relaxed. It's not about always even thinking about the right stuff, if that makes sense. I don't know. I don't have all the answers, but I know that when I come to the studio, if it's a safe place to play and make beautiful things, I need that. It does good things for me. And it's something that I get to share with others, which is really powerful. I get to share it with my family and with you. That idea that here is something you can do to bring yourself joy. And, where it goes from there is really secondary to that love of the process. And for many years, for several years, I did interviews with artists for the local newspaper. And these were artists who were doing all kinds of different things. Songwriters. I knew a lady who did pine needle weaving. She made these beautiful baskets with these long pine needles. There were wood carvers. There was a lady who did antler carving. And who else? Potters. And over again, as I talked to these artists, the recurring theme was the love of process. And some of them understood it more, even better than others. But, they were drawn to their medium because they loved doing it. Because something in them came alive when they connected to that process of making. And they weren't motivated necessarily by success. And that really hit home to me when I met a songwriter. And to me, when I think of songwriters, I think of people who are performing, they're wanting to sell their music to other performers or, whatever. But it always, to me, songwriting was very much connected with performance. And so to hear him say to me, oh, I really don't think about that much. I'm not motivated to perform my work. It's all about just writing those songs. That shifted something in me. Understanding why we talk about doing it for the process rather than for the outcome. And it's something that it's been probably 13 years since I spoke to him, since I first heard about that concept. And I'm still kind of unpacking what that all means. It's really powerful and really profound. So that's what we do. It doesn't mean, so when you're struggling creatively, I guess the upshot here is when you're struggling creatively, it's not that you need to get better. And so go out and work extra hard at getting better. It's actually that you just need to come back a little bit to your why, to your process, to the love of the process. Let this be your place to do it for the love. Hide it away. You don't have to show it to anybody. Just let it be something you love to do, first of all. And then when you do create something that you're proud of and want to share, that's wonderful. But it can be very fulfilling just to do it. And we want to encourage that. So those were my thoughts today. I'm over time already. So we're going to wrap this up, but I want to thank you for joining me and being so patient with me as I kind of unpack all this, as I'm learning it. I don't think, I think mindfulness is one of those things that you could always be doing better. And but mindful painting is something that we want to encourage just for what it brings to us. And of course, when we are healthy, we are able to contribute so much more to those around us. So, there is value in that. So thank you so much. I'm going to hit the stop button here. And we will continue talking about this in the Fearless Artist community at fearlessartist.net. We are there to support and encourage each other as we learn watercolor together. And do it for the love. We're there because we are fellow watercolor lovers. Whether you're just a beginner or you've been painting for years, at the core of it, we're doing it all for the same reasons. And that's what we connect over. So thank you for that. And enjoy your Tuesday. Bye for now.